All right. Let's start by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Prophecy Dictates the End of Babylon the Great. And pretty much this is based off of Jeremiah, the 51st chapter. I was watching the apostles and the bishop, speaking, and pretty much Elder Pastor mentioned Jeremiah, I believe 50 or 51. I mentioned about somebody breaking it down, and we've done it, before. But just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I see what's going on. All right, and we've done lessons on it before, but there's always newer members, and it's always good to go over these breakdowns from time to time, to keep it fresh in the mind. And pretty much there was another video I was watching too. It was a re-upload on Elder Pastor's video with the up-and-coming elder, the priest Amawan Gabar. And pretty much he was speaking about a dream that the up-and-coming elder Rapah from the Alabama camp, dream that he had, And pretty much, everything is pointing towards America going down, which is Babylon the Great. I was just watching a video earlier. The Ephraimite brother from Saints of Jersey, that he did on the Canadian Prepper, and did something with Iran and the ICBMs, so it's a lot going on, and all the fingers are pointing at America going down, Babylon the Great. There was a small hat having a discussion with a Moabite. I think it was a short somebody sent me. And pretty much the Moabite, was telling the dude, that, you guys killed, deleted or turned the TV off of 70,000 people, so on and so forth. And the other guy was like trying to circumvent him, and, and he wasn't having it. He just kept cursing him out, so the tension is there. These nations' tension is there, and the small hats have been a pivotal part in causing even more hatred towards America, Babylon the Great. And the scriptures, prophesied that the least of the flock, which is Amalek, is going to draw America into this final war. Because pretty much, America plays the role of, supposedly having it all together, dictating, world policies and all that. But really, behind the scenes, the small hats are running the game. So what I did, just to get started, I typed in, what does prophecy dictates mean? Because the name of the lesson is Prophecy Dictates the End of Babylon the Great. So it says, to say that prophecy dictates something means that a prediction or divine revelation commands, determines, or strongly influences a particular outcome. In this context, dictates is used in the same sense of issuing an absolute command, not simply speaking of reading aloud, right? So let's go to, there was another precept that came to mind. Actually, it was two precepts that came to mind. I got the second one, but I'm trying to remember what the first one was. All right, so I'll just go to this one. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 9. Let me read it again, see if to say that prophecy dictates something means that a prediction of divine revelation. Right, so let's go to Isaiah 55. And 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. So we're going to touch on 3 words here. So it's dealing with the words of the Lord, not returning void. The word void, rayaquam, vainly, emptily, in empty condition, empty. In other words, it's going to, without effect, it's going to do what the Lord said it's going to do. Then let's go to the next word, which is accomplish. The word is Aisha, which means to do. Aisha, to do, fashion, accomplish. And then the last word was prosper. The word for prosper is tazalach, which is to rush, to advance, prosper, make progress. So every word that the Lord speaks is going to prosper. It's going to move forward. It's going to, push, everything to the next level, because, the Lord has a purpose and a plan, and that purpose and that plan is being fulfilled as we speak, by all of these different prophecies speaking. So Isaiah 42:9, it says, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. See? So the Lord spoke of these prophecies in former times. Some were already fulfilled, and some are yet to be fulfilled. In the case of Jeremiah 50 and 51, we are still in the process of those scriptures or those prophecies being fulfilled. Now, those prophecies were written during the time of Zedekiah, which was the last king in Judah. And Zedekiah, pretty much his name was Mattathiah, and his name was changed by Nebuchadnezzar to Zedekiah. Now, Zedekiah, the king of Judah, was the uncle of Jeconiah, which was the last king of Judah. Zedekiah was the last king, but he was his king just prior to Zedekiah being put into place. And Zedekiah was pretty much a puppet of Nebuchadnezzar. All right. So during his time, which was around 580 something BC, was when this prophecy was written of Jeremiah 50 and 51. Now, these prophecies that we read about in Jeremiah 50 and 51 did not happen back then. That did not happen to ancient Babylon, because you figure about another 50 years in the future, eventually the Neo-Babylonian Empire will fall to the Medo-Persian Empire. But the way that Jeremiah 50 and 51 describes the destruction of Babylon does not fit how, the Neo-Babylonian Empire fell. You see? So that's how we know that it's not talking about back then. Now, there are certain things in there that you read that are stumbling blocks, because people, but wait, it says this, but this, but those are stumbling blocks. But when you read it with understanding, you see that it's talking about, another place, and it's not talking about the ancient or the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right. So let's get into it. Hopefully, that made sense. And Lord's will, this will be an edifying lesson. So this is Jeremiah chapter 51. And then here it says, Babylon judged for the sins against Israel. And that America is going to be judged for what they did to the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And Babylon, which is also known as the harlot in Jeremiah the 17th chapter, states in the 6th verse, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So she was drunken. When you're drunken with something, that means that you have satiated yourself, in much death. That's what the Lord said. Since you didn't hate, blood, blood shall pursue thee. And that's why the angel in the next chapter took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea and said, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and should be found no more at all. Because of what you did to the Israelites, the controversy of Zion. This is why you're going to pay. This is why you're going to be destroyed, along with many other reasons. But this is one of the main reasons. You touch the apple of the Most High's eye, and you don't do that. There's many things you don't do, but that's definitely not one of them. That's on the top of the list. So let's go back to Jeremiah 51:1. It says, thus saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind. And what is this destroying wind? The nuclear wind, the nuclear fire. And those of you that have seen the movie Terminator 2, Judgment Day, or the movie Knowing, or other movies like that, where they show, nuclear destruction, they'll show you a big wall of fire coming through. And that big wall of fire coming through, it sweeps, like it says in Isaiah 14, it sweeps across, and anything in its path, it destroys. This is another scripture, Isaiah 14. And we're going to try to get through as much of this as possible. Isaiah 14:23. And I will also make it a possession for the bittern. And when you tie this together with Isaiah 34, with Isaiah 13, with Jeremiah 50 and 51, it all talks about the same thing, that after the destruction of this Babylon, it will be inhabited by desert creatures, by unclean birds, and so on and so forth. Ancient Babylon, Iraq, they're still there. People are still in those areas. You still have, there's no, these creatures that are there. The world, they're not, there's no records of any great devastation that rocked the whole world, that people were in such awe and looking at this Babylon as, wow, that was a great destruction or a great devastation, and it's inhabited by desert creatures. There's still people that ride through there, so the Lord said it would never be inhabited again. And that's how we know it's not talking about ancient Babylon. It says, I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua of hosts. So that's that destroying wind in Jeremiah 51. And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, right? Because the Lord is using these different instances to fan the flames, of the destruction of Babylon the Great, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble, they shall be against her round about, right? So all nations are going to come against this whole, including her own allies, and that's, that's a game changer right there, because America, which is a superpower, has, NATO, has the EU, on backing them up, but they're going to turn against her because everything that America's doing is affecting everybody. It's affecting all nations, and the nations are tired. They're getting restless, because they drank the wine. They were inebriated for a while. They were out of their mind for a while, but now they're starting to wake up and feel that hangover, so to speak, and they're starting to say, you know what, we got to do something about this. This ain't right. It says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow. This is dealing with the nuclear missiles. This is language that was used in the ancient world to describe, the silos, to describe the nuclear missiles, to describe the missiles in general. It says, and against him that lifted himself up in the brigandine, which represents armor, and that armor, or that coat of mail, as in the medieval times, is what is the weaponry that Esau possesses, right? It says, "And spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts or all her army." All right, and this also reminds me of the dream that Jake had, with the YNs, being put to death in the war. I mean, they were just being taken out. They were being taken out. Their TVs were being turned off. I mean, I'm talking about. He just said that there was just blood everywhere. It says, "Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans." This is dealing with America, "and they that are thrust through in her streets." So you're going to have a lot of death here on the streets of America, Babylon the Great, when the Lord destroys this place. And just prior to the destruction, during the time of Jacob's trouble, there's going to be a lot of death. It says, "For Israel have not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power," right? Because this is the reason why the Lord is raising up the tribes here in America. And that's why that 12 tribe sign is so important. We had this one Jake that came up. He seemed like he was sincere, but he was just confused. We were trying to give him some type of direction, but he was just gone. I mean, at least the Lord had mercy on him, and turn him around. But he was inquiring about the sign, and he was inquiring about, trivial stuff. So we were trying to give him direction, but he just eventually he left. This Edomite looking chick came up with something. She's talking about something about her children and all this, and then eventually he started talking to her, and eventually he just walked down the street, because he just kept interrupting, and it was just like, all right, brother, that's enough. We're gonna go on. If you want to listen, you can listen. If not, So the Lord, is gathering the nation of Israel, or the elect of the nation of Israel, here in Babylon the Great, and that 12 tribe sign plays a pivotal, part in this. It says, "Of the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel." Right. So this scripture here proves that you're not going to have any Israelites burning in hell. There's no such thing as hell. The Lord said he will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. You see? So this is showing you that the Lord is going to forgive Israel of their iniquity, no matter if they're the elect, no matter if they're the 2/3. Because the 1/3 or the elect are already forgiven, but the 2/3 are going to be forgiven also. It says, "Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul," meaning this scripture here is talking about spiritually coming out of this place, mentally coming out of this place. We still have to function, but your energy should be that any day this place can go down. All right. It says, "Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense." So the Lord is going to judge this place, and it's Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Isaiah 13, Isaiah 14, Revelation 17, Revelation 18. These are all judgments of the Lord on the same place. But these prophecies were revealed to the prophets in different time periods. The Lord said before they come to pass, he tells you of them. So this is what we're reading here. We're reading about the destruction of America, and nobody out there can tell you, outside of the prophets of Great Millstone and, some of the other camps that do prophesy, what this means. You'll have individuals that say this is talking about ancient Babylon, this, that, and the other. But then when you ask them certain questions as to, okay, so what major war took place, that fulfilled this? What major event in history took place that fulfilled, the total annihilation and destruction, of Babylon, of the Neo-Babylonian Empire? And they can't give you anything, because the scriptures tell us what happened to the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It was absorbed into the Medo-Persian Empire overnight, just like that. So it says, "Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made the earth drunken." Right. Same deal with Revelation the 17th chapter. And how did America do that? All you have to do is look up a term called Americanization. Americanization is the influence that America has, culturally, socially, economically, so on and so forth, worldwide. This is why you have all of these different, businesses, restaurants, and ideologies of America in those different countries, but in their particular languages. It says the nations have drunken over wine, therefore the nations are mad, meaning they're bugged out, but also, they're pissed off because they're, they took on the identity, so to speak, of America. So they're bugged out of their mind, but then also they're pissed off because they're seeing that the deals that they made with America are not really benefiting them the way that America told them that it would, or the way that they perceived it in their mind. So what they're doing is they're speaking against this place. They got issues with America. They're pissed off, and eventually that's going to cause them to retaliate by, the ones that do have missiles shooting missiles on America. All right, and that's the way this place is going to go out. That's how the whole land is going to be utterly wasted. This is what the scriptures say in 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, that the day cometh. I'm sorry, that's in Malachi. In 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, where it says that the Lord is going to destroy this place, by fire. It says Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed, right? Because it's only going to take 1 hour. It's not going to take that long. How for her take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed, right? So what great event in history took place that fulfilled this, that Babylon was suddenly fallen and destroyed? There was no event. There was no war that was fought. There was no great fire that happened that is in history, whether biblical or secular, that describes or explains what the scripture here means. It says we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed, right? Because no matter what you do, no matter how many deals you sign, no matter how many stimulus packages or how many, QE packages, or no matter what you do, there's nothing that you could do to turn around your fate. You're circling the drain. You're spiraling out of control, and you're circling the drain. And this devil Trump pretty much is, a visual picture of what's happening to America. They're just going headlong. This guy is a maniac. He's a goddamn maniac. It says, forsake her and let us go everyone to his own country. Yeah, because eventually these nations, they're seeing that doing business here in America is not productive, or should I say is not profitable. So they're taking their businesses out of America, going back to their countries, paying a lot less to make their products, and then just shipping them here to sell them here. You see, because they still have a vested interest in making that money. Economically, that's how these nations became rich. Not with the Vatican, not with ancient Babylon, over there in Iraq, but with America. It says, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven and is lifted up even to the skies, right? Because the Lord, now is starting to visit, the earth, because it's about time for the Lord to judge this place. And that's why you see all the prophecies popping off as in such a fast rate as it is, because we're witnessing the downfall of this place. We're witnessing the Lord's words being fulfilled on the earth, because the prophets have been prophesying, and after the prophets prophesy, after a certain period of time, the Lord will bring in the judgment. And we're witnessing the last final stages of the sentencing stage, as they call it. Which they've been read the charges, and now once the charges are finished being read, which they've been being read for the longest, then the Lord is going to bring the actual judgment that he said. So the Lord hath brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of the Lord Yahweh Bashem our power. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Right. So make bright the arrows. There's nothing bright about an arrow. The reason why arrows are used, like a regular arrow, is because of the stealthiness of it, the quietness of an arrow. You have a bow and arrow, they're usually quiet, and you could take somebody out, without them even knowing. But the bright arrows is talking about the missiles. You have the fire that comes when you look at a missile being shot, whether it's a nuclear missile or a regular missile, you'll see fire coming out of it. In other scriptures, it calls it a glittering spear. These are all code names for the missiles today, because back then they didn't have the terminology such as nuclear missile or hydrogen bomb or anything like that. So they had the prophets wrote it in the fashion or in the wording that they understood back then, describing what they saw. All right, gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes. See, and this is dealing with the Russians, the kings of the Medes, because Russia has that land of the Medes stems from the northern part going into what they call Georgia. It used to be called Georgia, Russia, in that region, and even above that, because you had all of that was no man's land at one time. But this is where Russia pretty much came from the Medes, spreading out that way. Now the ancient Medes, which were Japhet, they were actually brown-skinned people. But when Esau came and took over that region called Russia today, they actually, encompass all of that area. All right. So it says, for his device, meaning the Lord's device, is against Babylon to destroy it, because the Lord has a purpose to get rid of this place. And although people don't want to believe the scriptures, everything that we see going on prophetically is a witness that this place is about to go out. So it doesn't matter if you believe it or not, the Lord is still going to take this place out of here. So it says, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple, right, for what they did to his people, the Israelites, what they did to us. It says, set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes, for the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai had both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon, right? And these prophecies are sure. They're going to actually happen. It says, O thou that dwellest upon many waters. And what are the many waters? It's dealing with peoples. This goes hand in hand with Revelation 17 and 15, that the waters that thou sawest are peoples and nations and tongues. And America happens to be known as the great melting pot. You have all different nations from all over the world speaking all different languages here. So this is the many waters, abundant in treasures, right? They are abundant in treasures. And there's another word in here, right? Let me see. Let me just click here. It's 13th verse. I believe it's the 41st verse. Which, this is like parabolic, symbolic, but it's heavy what it says, because it ties into another precept. Let's get it first. Jeremiah 51 and 41. How is Shishak taken? And how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? Right, because she's going to be destroyed. Now, Shishak is another name for Babylon, right? Let's go to Shishak, right? It says another name for Babylon, apparently taken from the goddess Shak. But what it means, Shishak, is thy fine linen. and that goes hand in hand. There's many precepts we could go to in Revelation, but one in particular that I thought of was Revelation, the 18th chapter, and the right here in the 16th verse, I believe it is. Let me see. No, right here, 14th verse. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty, which is just where you get the word fat, liparos, fat, and that's the American diet is the most atrocious diet on the planet. That's why everybody's so goddamn, especially nowadays. My goodness, you have lumps on top of lumps, on top of fat, on top of hills, on top of mounds, on top of mountains. It says, and goodly are departed from thee, that and thou shalt find them no more at all. Right. And when you go to this word goodly, right, that's where you get the word lampros. Right? Goodly is lampros, which means shining, brilliant, clear, transparent, splendid, magnificent, splendid things. An example, luxuries or elegancies in dress or style. You see, elegancies in dress or styles, which goes with Revelation 17, right? And 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So this is metaphoric for the luxurious lifestyle that is presented here in America. So Shishak is a code name for Babylon that means thy fine linen. Okay? Show you that it's parabolic talk. So we go back to the 13th verse. Right? It says, O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Right? Because, see, these devils think, like the scriptures say, because sentence against the evil work is not executed speedily, it is set in the heart of the sons of men to do evil. So they continue to be indebted and to pile up a bill that they have never paid for. And eventually, the bill is going to come up. And the Lord is about to judge them for that. It says, the Lord Yahweh Bashem of hosts have sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with men as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. Right. And there's plenty of people here, all throughout the U.S., and they're brought here, the majority of them, for judgment. The majority of these people that you see here in America, over 350 million people, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or so, the majority of them are destined for destruction. There's only a small percentage of Israelites that are of the elect that's going to be delivered in comparison to the many peoples that are here. It says, he hath made the earth by his power, he hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heaven by his understanding. When he uttereth his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens, and he causeth the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. Right? Because once the Lord destroys this place, you're going to see the vapors and the fire and the smoke coming out. And the nations are going to be afar off, like it says in Revelation 18. Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, for in 1 hour such riches come to naught. I'm just merely paraphrasing. And they say they saw the smoke of her torment going up. It says he maketh lightnings with rain. Right, that's dealing with the missiles coming down, and bringeth forth the wind out of his treasures. And that's that sweeping wind of destruction that we read in the first verse. Every man is brutish by his knowledge, and every founder is confounded by his graven image, dealing with idols. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They, meaning the idols, are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation, they shall perish. Yeah, because the Lord is going to visit these devils and he's going to visit their idols. Because you say these are gods, okay, I'm coming to see them. I'm gonna prove and see if they really are gods. That's why he told these devils, stand up now with thy enchantments. See if they be able to save you from the troubles that are coming. They'll be able to save you from the calamities that are coming. There's not going to be anything that's going to stand in the way of Yahweh Bashem El Shai when he comes to take this place out of here. It's already set and etched in stone. All we doing now is waiting to see everything play out until the Lord brings the final, till the Lord pushes the button. It says the portion of Jacob is not like them, right? The Most High, Yahweh, is not like those other gods, because he is a power. He by him actions are weighed. He is the authority. He is the power of powers, and over the history, different nations have acknowledged that. But now that things have gone dormant, they're still giving reverence to their gods. But the time is coming where all nations on the planet Earth are going to finally, once again, give reverence to the power of heaven, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. It says, for he is the former of all things, right? Really, this is dealing with the Most High, Yahweh. He's the former of all things, ancient of days, but we also speak, we also say this is dealing with the Israelites, former of all things. And Israel is the rod of his inheritance, because the subject matter here is the portion of Jacob, which is the Most High. And Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of hosts is his name. See? So this is really talking about the Most High, but we use it for Israel, for Israel being the former of all things, because they are. And, we are the sons of the power. We are the sons of the Most High. So we are the former of all things also, and as far as the earthly things are concerned. It says that, so the Lord say, now with the Israelites, thou art my battle axe and weapon of war. So my question to the IUIC is, the Lord said we are his battle axe and weapons of war. If we are not to hate Esau, which the scripture in Deuteronomy 23:7 has nothing to do with the word hate. The word abhor does not mean hate. But if what you're saying is true, then how are we going to accomplish this? Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. Matter of fact, before I read that, let's go to Ezekiel 25 and 14. It says, and I will lay my vengeance, is the Most High speaking, upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel. So if you can't lay your hands or your vengeance on a particular people if you're supposed to love them, if you're not supposed to hate them. This shit is insane, man. And they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury. So wait a minute. But I thought thou art not supposed to abhor an Edomite. It says, and they shall know my vengeance, save the Lord, Yahweh Bashem El power. Right, because the Lord is going to let these devils know once and for all who's in control. Yahweh Bashem El is in control. So going back to Jeremiah 51 and 20, thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms, and with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. So you can't be a person that loves these nations and then have to bust them upside the head and break them up in pieces. With thee also will I break in pieces man and woman, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young, and with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock. And with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen. And with thee will I break in pieces captain and rulers. Yeah, because the Lord, the scriptures say, who shall rouse Judah up? When the Lord gets Judah roused up, it's over. You see what happened, in Watts, in the 60s. You see what happened in, what was that, 92? Was that? The Rodney King situation. When Judah gets turned up, shit gets popping. And don't let it be a union of Judah and Ephraim. then you really see shit turned up. Because the Lord said that Judah, he's going to bend Judah and fill the bow with Ephraim. So it's going to get bad out here, man. You know, these devils talking that crap about, they want to do this, they want to do that to Jake. When the Lord turned Jake up, you ain't going to be able to handle Jake. This is why you needed Jake to take Jake down. This is why you needed the Buffalo Soldiers to take down Gad. This is why you needed, other Gadites to help you take the Gadites down. This is why you needed, certain Sambo Jakes, to ensemble, Tontos to help take down the other, tribes, because you couldn't do it. And that's why the Lord blessed you with the sword, with that Gatling gun, and also with sellouts, in order to be able to accomplish the mission, because the Lord's words had to be fulfilled. It says in verse 24, and I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai. And when this whole so-called country goes up in flames, that's going to be a witness as to the Lord destroying this place for what Esau did to us. Remember, the earth, America is filled with the blood of the saints. Behold, I am against the old destroying mountain. Yeah, because all this, from the inception, from the first moment that these devils step foot on this side of the world, it's been nothing but destruction. That's why the Lord said, thus with violence shall thy great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai, which destroyeth all the earth. You destroyed all the earth from right here, America. Beginning with the Industrial Revolution. From that point till now, you've destroyed this. You look at the world in the condition that it's in. The pollution, the air, the water, animals. Animals are sick. You have whales and fish beaching themselves and getting the hell out of the water because their own environment is so toxic that they rather just off themselves than to stay living in those conditions. You got a lot to pay for, man. It says, and I will stretch out mine hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks and will make thee a burnt mountain. Ancient Babylon is not a burnt mountain. It's not set up as a monument, of some great fire that happened that said, okay, you see that over there? See Babylon over there, Iraq? That's the Lord judged that place. That's why it looks like that. That's why, there was this great fire that came down from heaven and destroyed the whole place, and that's what's left of it, and it will never be inhabited again. No, you still have people that live there in those areas. Just bear with me 1 second, Babaka Shah. I'll be right back at 2:02. Oh. Okay, Salaki for that. All right, so let's get back to it. So now, verse 26, it says, "And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner," right? Because there's not going to be anything here. See, right now, Esau has these rock quarries. He has lumber yards. He has, different places where you can get concrete, you can get rebar, you can get, whatever you need for building. There's not going to be anything left here to build anything, because when the Lord takes his place out, it's going to be a flat, burnt plain. It's not going to be any building material here because the Lord is going to utterly destroy this place. And that's the judgment of America. That's why when this beast, which is the eighth head, came into power, it said what? It would go into perdition. The word perdition means destruction. And we're witnessing, the instruments that the Lord is going to use to destroy this place. Going back to the 40s and the 50s when they were infusing these different atoms and whatever, all that nuclear fusion and fission and all that. We're witnessing now the actual instruments that are going to be used to judge this place. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the same missiles that America shoots will turn back, the Lord turning back on this place. It remains to be seen. It says, "Nor a stone for foundation, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua." Right. If you type in Babylon, you're going to see that there's still people there. There's still stones there. There's still in certain areas you have certain ruins, but overall you still have, people there that are still living in those areas. It says, "Set ye up a standard in the land," right? And what's the standard? This truth. Blow the trumpet, and that's what we're doing among the nations, right? Because we are set up to be prophets to the nations, to let them know what their future is going to be. It says, "Prepare the nations against her," right? Call together against her the kingdom of Ararat. Ararat, this is in Armenia. Mini, that's another region in Armenia. Ashkenaz, you have the Germans, right? "Appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars," right? Because you're going to have massive amounts of armies. This is why the scriptures in Revelation calls it Armageddon. The term Armageddon goes back to the Hebrew word Harmageddon, which means mountain of the troops. When you break it down, Har is mountain, or mount or hill. Then you have Ma, which is other from. Then you have God, Gad, which is troop. And the one at the end makes it plural. Harmageddon, the mountain of the troops. All right. It says, "Prepare against her the nations of the kings of the Medes," right, which are the Russians. And the Russians are going to be, because you have something called the Russia-Armenian Alliance. I believe it's called the Russia-Armenian Alliance. And as of 2024, the relationship ain't that great, but the Lord is going to cause something to happen to where all of that's going to mend. Just like they have a relationship with Iran, they have a relationship with different countries in Africa, because this is prophecy. You can't trump prophecy. Prophecy is going to dictate whatever the Lord says is going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Doesn't matter if you have allies that are enemies. Something's going to happen to where they're going to join back together to fulfill the Lord's purpose. It says, "The captains thereof and all the rulers thereof and all the land of his dominion," right? Because the Lord is preparing, these nations for war. That's the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. It says, "And the land shall tremble in sorrow." Why? Because of the missiles coming. Now, back in 1983, you had the movie called The Day After. And when that movie came out, people were shook. And really, that movie, they showed a little something, but they really didn't show a whole lot. But it was enough to get people stirred up. So, and then they show you in there the actual missiles flying in the air with the smoke behind them, like a serpent, And then they show you like when ground zero and how the people were irradiated. So it shows you like a little glimpse. So when these missiles start flying, people are going to be scared of the hearts failing for fear, for looking at those things that are coming upon the earth. For every purpose of the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai shall be performed against Babylon, right? Because it's the purpose of the Lord, his counsel, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. And when you go to Babylon today, or you see, I'm sure they have films and all that. There's still people that are in those regions, still walking through those regions. The Lord said there's not going to be any inhabitants. It's going to be desolate. The only thing that's going to be inhabiting, this Babylon are wild creatures, unclean animals, unclean birds, so on and so forth. No humans, no civilization. No one will ever recolonize this place. There will be no building set up, no new structure, no government, Even the governmental buildings are going to be out of here. Says the mighty men of Babylon, which is the military, have forborne to fight. Yeah, you see these individuals. Now you have the certain elite among these fighting individuals, like special forces and that. But the average regular military individuals, they're through, finished. And they, you got more, like even in the movie Civil War, they showed you, these two Edomites that were in the military. They were trying to get this sniper, and they had bugged out color, different color hair, and then one of them had his fingernails, painted. It's like, come on, man. Do you think the Russians are looking at this American military with any respect? Do you think any of those other nations, those manly, army men over there, are looking at these, slobs over here with any respect? When you went to war with a nation's reputation was established upon their military prowess. They did exploits. When you heard Alexander the creep or the Greek coming for you, you got nervous. When you heard of the Persian Empire coming for you, you got nervous. You look at these individuals that call themselves being in the military, you're like, you guys are warriors? Come on, man. Stop joking. It says they have remained in their holds. Their might hath failed. They became as women. And you see that, a lot of moist individuals out there. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken, right? And this didn't happen to ancient Babylon. Or should I say the Neo-Babylonian Empire. One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end, right? So because you have what they call so-called sleeper cells here, and Zelda Pastor mentioned, not a few times he mentioned it, in the book of Revelation when it says the 10th part of the city fell, something could happen to where they could actually set something off to where a certain portion of America could be messed up. They could hit a pocket nuke or whatever the case may be, and something could go off and, a certain portion be jacked up prior to the destruction or just before the destruction. It remains to be seen. It says, and that the passages are stopped. Yeah, because you're going to have, the military out there. You're going to have, martial law, so on and so forth. And the reeds, and they have burned with fire. And the reeds, they have burned with fire. And the men of war are frightened. They're going to be, these so-called warriors are going to be scared. Because this is not going to, this battle, this war that's going to happen is going to be unlike anything else that has ever happened in history. It's going to be unlike any other war. Because it's going to be the final war. The Lord is going to let this place go out with a bang, literally. And it's going to serve as a judgment. It's going to serve as a deliverance of the elected nation of Israel. And it's definitely going to serve as the upliftment and the praising and honoring and glorying of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. says, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shem of hosts, the power of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. Now, what is a threshing floor? A threshing floor is a floor where you would put grapes in it, right? And once those grapes were filled to the top, you couldn't put any more grapes in it. What do? You go in there and you stomp them. And what comes out of it? The blood of the grapes. So the Lord has this place. It's full. It's at his peak. You know, it's ripe with wickedness. And now it's time to go. So the word is garan, threshing floor, barn floor, corn floor, void, place. Analogy, an open area, barn, corn, threshing floor, threshing, void, place. Root meaning to smooth. So it says a threshing floor, right? And what do you do with what is threshing? You know, that's when you're separating something. All right, let's type in threshing. Threshing meaning. And let's just go to the Bible. Threshing meaning. In the Bible, threshing refers to the agricultural process of separating grain from its husk and the symbolic meaning of the Most High's judgment. See? It says purification and separation of the righteous from the wicked, right? Because the Lord is coming to deliver the elect, and then the rest He's going to destroy here in America. All right? So the threshing floor is pretty much is full. How does that scripture go? Something is full. Let me see if it'll come up like this. How many times did it come up? 40 times. Just bear with me. Right here, Joel 3:13. Put ye in the sickle. What is a sickle? That's a farming utensil or farming tool for harvest. For the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. So this is symbolic. You know, the Lord is using, you know, the agricultural terms to paint a picture of this judgment that He's going to bring upon Babylon the Great. Okay. So going back, let's read that again. Jeremiah 51:33. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, the daughter of Babylon, is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Now, this scripture, this verse here, you know, sounds like a stumbling block. You know, that's what, oh no, that's talking about, because it said Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, have devoured me. So yeah, see, that was talking about that was back in the Neo-Babylonian Empire. No, this is not what that's talking about. This is a stumbling block. Because show me in here, you know, or in history, or any documentation where Babylon was taken out in the fashion that Jeremiah the 50 in the 51st chapter spoke of. You ain't gonna find it, because it's not there. So it says, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, hath devoured me. He hath crushed me. He hath made me an empty vessel. He hath swallowed me up like a dragon. He hath filled his belly with my delicates. He hath cast me out. Yeah, and you had Pharaoh. So America today would be like the modern day pharaohs or the modern day Nebuchadnezzars. All right. It says, the violence is done to me and to my flesh be upon Babylon. And the inhabitants of Zion, shall the inhabitants of Zion say, and my blood upon the inhabitants of Chaldea shall Jerusalem say. Yeah. And that's why in Revelation 17, it said that she was drunken with the blood of the saints. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will plead thy cause and take vengeance for thee, and I will dry up her sea and make her springs dry. Yeah, because there's good, everything here in America is going to be taken out. It's going to be left as a burnt mountain. And it means just that. but it's going to be a burnt flat plain because it's a mountain, it's a government, but it's going to be it's going to be a burnt flat plain. There's going to be no more government here. That's why even in Isaiah 34, right? Isaiah 34 and right here in 12, they shall call the nobles thereof to the kingdom. Right, that's dealing with you, or the ones that run the government, but none shall be there, and their princes shall be nothing. Yeah, because it's going to be finished. And thorns shall come up in their palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortresses thereof, and there shall be an habitation of dragons and a court for owls. See, and these are all synonymous one with another. Isaiah 13, Isaiah 14, Isaiah 34, Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Revelation 17, Revelation 18. Judgment of the great whore, Babylon the Great. So back in Jeremiah 51:37, and Babylon shall become heaps. Ancient Babylon didn't become heaps. A dwelling place for dragons. It didn't become a dwelling place for dragons. An astonishment. Who's looking at Babylon, the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire in that fashion? Nobody. It says, and in hissing without inhabitant. And there's still people that live in those areas. Let's go to the word astonishment. The word there's shema, waste, horror, appallment. Ain't nobody like, oh my God, look at Babylon, Iraq. Oh, wow. Ain't nobody looking at it like that. Appallment, horror. Oh my God. But when this place goes out, it says, alas, alas, for that great city Babylon. For in 1 hour, such riches, come to naught. And let's look up the other word, astonishment, and then hissing. The word for hissing is sharakwa. Hissing, whistling. Or derision. Right. A derision is, like bugged out. They're going to be bugged out. They're going to be bugged out, elder. Hissing. To hiss means make a sharp, sibilant sound as of the letter S. You go, it's God damn. They didn't took them out. Right here it says definition of hissing, not a fricative sound, especially as an expression of disapproval, like like that. All right, so let's go back. Verse 38. No, not 30. What the? Oh, snap. Where were we at? Yep. Verse 38. They shall roar together like lions. They shall yell as lions whelps. In their heat, I will make their feasts. Lord, He's going to make a feast at this place. Pastor Taro, we say Isaiah 34, he said that America is going to be a great altar. In their heat, I will make their feast. And I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep. Right. Ancient Babylon, Iraq is not sleeping a perpetual sleep and not wake, saith Yahweh Bashem Shai. I will bring them down like lambs to the slaughter, like rams with the he goes. Yeah, this goes hand in hand with Isaiah 34. How is Shishak or America, fine linen, taken? And how is the praise of the whole earth, which is America, surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? This goes hand in hand with Revelation 18. It says, the sea is come up upon Babylon. She is covered with the multitude of the waves thereof. Yeah, there's nothing you're going to be able to do to escape this. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land and a wilderness. That's going to be America after the destruction. A land wherein no man dwelleth, neither doth any son of man pass thereby. You still have people that drive and ride by there and walk by it, ancient Babylon. It says, and I will punish Bel, which are the idols in Babylon, and I will bring forth out of his mouth that which he hath swallowed up, and the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. Yea, the wall of Babylon shall fall, right? So you're not going to have any more nations coming here to do business here anymore. It's going to be gone. There ain't going to be no more agora here. My people, go ye out of the midst of her, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of the Lord. Right, and this is dealing with the elect. They mentally get out of this place, because the Lord's going to destroy this place. You see what's happening? And lest your heart faint, and you fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land, or rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. Yeah, you're going to see that. You're going to see civil war. You're going to see class wars. You're going to see, the rulers of the different nations coming against America. Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babylon, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Yeah, if you're on the soils of America, when those missiles hit, you're toast. The only ones that's going to make it out of here are the elect of the nation of Israel. Then the heaven and the earth and all that is therein shall sing for Babylon, for the spoilers shall come unto her from the north, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. That's the Russians, with their military, the missiles. As Babylon hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth, right? Because you have all different nations here. And this, like I said, this goes hand in hand with, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. Ye that have escaped the sword, go away, stand not still. Remember Yahweh Bashem Shai far off, and let Jerusalem come into your mind. We are confounded because we have heard reproach. Shame hath covered our faces, for strangers are come into the sanctuaries of the Lord's house. Right? And nowadays, the sanctuaries are who? The Israelites. The Israelites are the temple that these devils have desecrated. Wherefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through all her land the wounded shall groan. Though Babylon should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength, and they're at the height of their strength, yet from me shall spoilers come unto her, said the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. That's dealing with the nations and dealing with their missiles. A sound of a cry cometh from Babylon, and great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans. You ain't going to read about no great destruction of ancient Babylon. You ain't going to read nothing like that, because it didn't happen. This is not talking about ancient Babylon. This is talking about Babylon the Great. It says, because the Lord hath spoiled Babylon and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise of their voice is uttered, because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babylon, and her mighty men are taken, every one of their bows is broken, right? Because your silos, where you have your nuclear missiles at, all of your weaponry that's here, it's going to be annihilated by those missiles. For the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, the power of recompenses, shall surely requite, and I will make drunk her princes and her wise men, meaning with destruction, with blood, her captains and her rulers and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep. There will be no survivors here in America. It doesn't matter if you're in a bunker down here, somewhere, or whatever, in a mountain. You're finished and not awake, saith the King, whose name is Yahweh Bashem Shai of hosts. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burnt with fire. That didn't happen in ancient Babylon. And the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary. Right, that goes hand in hand with Isaiah 13. And this goes, it says, the word which Jeremiah the prophet commanded Shariah, the son of Neriah, the son of Messiah. So this happened roughly around 550 something or 580 something BC during the reign of King Zedekiah. I believe it was 550 something or 580 something BC. Matter of fact, just bear with me 1 second. Zedekiah reigned from 597 to 586 BC. That's roughly around the time when this prophecy was written. And even Jeremiah didn't understand what this meant. In the 4th year of his reign, and this Sariah was a quiet prince. He was a quartermaster. So Jeremiah wrote in a book all the evil that should come upon Babylon, even all these words that are written against Babylon, right? And he thought it was talking about ancient Babylon, but it wasn't. This is a future prophecy. And Jeremiah said to Sariah, when thou comest to Babylon and shall see and shall read all these words, then shalt thou say, O Lord, thou hast spoken against this place to cut it off, that none shall remain in it, right? And that didn't happen back then to the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Neither man nor beast, but that it shall be desolate forever, right? And you still have people over there. So Jeremiah didn't understand what this was. And that's why Yahweh told the disciples, blessed are you, for many great men and prophets have desired to see the things that you see, but I have not seen them. So they saw things, they wrote them down, but they didn't have the full understanding. They only knew so much, because the prophecy at the time that they saw it was not meant for them to understand. It was just meant for them to prophesy. It says, and it shall be when thou hast made an end of reading this book, that thou should bind the stone to it, and cast it into the midst of Euphrates. And thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink. Don't we read that in our Revelation, the 18th chapter? Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. And you still have rulers over there in Iraq. So it's not talking about that land over there. It's talking about somewhere else. It's talking about here in America. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.